In my last playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, I had a lot of great adventures. There are tons of memorable moments, and I met a host of great characters, many of which were not in the vanilla game. Ladies and gentlemen, in this, the 7th and final episode of Modding Fallout New Vegas, we're going to talk about quest mods.
Jingle jangle, in that song.
In this series, I've not only showed you some of the mods I think you should install and shown you how to install them, I've also shown you some of the other sorts of mods you might want to install, some of the options you have, and how to go about comparing them and making a decision as to which mods are right for you. But there is one type of mod that I have not yet spoken of, and that type is the quest mod. Now, believe it or not, quest mods are usually some of the easiest mods to install, even though they're often some of the biggest and most complex mods to create. So more often than not, the major considerations are not technical ones, they are narrative ones. How will these quest mods affect your playthrough? Are they lore-friendly quests that fit the vibe in New Vegas, or are they zany, over-the-top experiences that go completely against the grain of the original game? I mean, when you mod your game, there is no requirement for you to stick to the original developer's vision. You're modding your game to make it something you want to play. You can go nuts if you want. You also need to consider the size and scope of the mod. Are you looking for a small quest mod that will just add some quick little quest that you can do in your current playthrough? Just add a little something extra in a place that seems a little dull? Or are you looking for some major quest series that will radically change your current or planned playthrough? Or even maybe you're thinking of doing a totally different campaign in a completely different land on the New Vegas engine. There are a lot of possibilities with quest mods. And so that's what I really want to discuss in this video. I want to talk about some of the quest mods I really did enjoy in my last playthrough and discuss with you some of the considerations you might want to take into account when deciding whether or not to install these mods. So I want to start by talking about some small quest mods, and I'm using the word small relative to the size of some other quest mods, because quest mods by their very nature are often quite large and very complicated to make. They require a lot of different expertise, a lot of different people usually end up helping, whether it's with models, voice lines, etc. And so even small quest mods are a fairly large achievement. And a good example of this would be the Couriers Cache. This is what I would consider a small quest mod, but it comes with a player home, 3 quests for you to do, 4 new sets of armor, a rifle, and 5 craftable weapons. And it obviously comes with voiced NPCs as well. And this mod is perfect for showing you the potential quest mods have without being overwhelming. It's something small that you can add to your playthrough and just get a feel for what quest mods might add without radically changing things initially. The quests themselves are very engaging and the characters you meet are amusing. It definitely has that New Vegas humour, a little tongue-in-cheek, in fact in this particular case very tongue-in-cheek.
I am Carlos.
And the outfits and weapons are great as well. They really do fit the theme, and I did especially like the gunslinger's outfit and the rifle. Installing the Couriers Cache is insanely easy. Just go to the page, read the description, make sure you meet the requirements, of which there are none. Go to the file section, download to Vortex, hit install, enable, and then just start up the game. Once in game, you will get a little pop-up reminding you that you may have forgotten some stuff that belongs to you, and you click OK, and the quest begins. But if you're looking for something a little different, a little out of the norm for the New Vegas quests, but still fitting the theme of the game, there are mods like the new Bison Steve Hotel and Lucky Casino. This is a mod that lets you reopen the casino in Prim and actually help run it. It will give you a player home, a place you can stash all your stuff, and actually a source of income. Now, it is a quest mod, so of course there are some adventures that you will be going on, some tasks you need to complete to rebuild and clean up the hotel and get certain things you're going to need for a casino. Once the casino is done, your job is pretty much over. You just go back every now and again and pick up your caps. But until it's done, you've got quite a few things to do. This is a very RPG focused type of quest, but there is some combat. However, the combat is pretty low level and you should be able to handle it even with a beginner character, which is great because Prim is actually one of the first places you will visit when you leave Goodsprings at the start of the game. So this is a good mod to start early on, to actually put in your load order right at the start, and then you will have a player home and a business if you want. Installing the new Bison Steve Hotel and Lucky Casino is trivially easy if you've been following this series. You just do the process you've done many times, but this time, when you come to the file section, there are actually two choices for your main file. Both versions of the mod are identical in functionality, in features, that you will not see any difference in game. There are just some technical differences in how the game engine handles master files versus plugins, but that is way out of scope for this series, so I'm just going to pick the master file version, download with my mod manager, hit install, enable, and then start up the game. This time when you get in game, you won't receive a nice little message, but if you head off to Prim and just talk to people, I'm sure you'll get things started soon enough. Whilst you were in the file section, you may have noticed an optional file called New Bison Steve version 107 Sortomatic version and thought to yourself, what is Sortomatic? Sortomatic is actually a really good mod for people who enjoy player homes. It's a modder's resource that allows people who make player homes to add really useful functionality when it comes to the loot and the containers that you use to contain your loot. It adds a lot of extra functionality, like the ability to just drop off all of your loot into one container and have the house sort of automatically sort it into different containers. You know, ammo in the ammo container, armor in the armor cabinet, etc. It has a ton of other features that I will leave you to discover on the mod page. However, I will bring your attention to one feature, the integrated crafting benches, probably the best feature of this mod. It essentially allows you to go to a crafting station in your home with this mod installed, and you can start crafting and you will have access to all of the components, the craftable ingredients in all of the containers in the house. It's a massive quality of life improving mod. If you're the sort of person that wants to, you know, sort all the loot into different containers, or the sort of person who's going to be crafting things like custom ammo, this mod really will help. You're going to want this for your player homes. Go along to the file section on the page. Of course, read the description first, check the requirements, which does include NVSE. Go to the file section and Mod Manager download. You will also need the optional file on the New Bison Steve Hotel and Lucky Casino page, but you will have to manually download this. Installing Sortomatic is actually very easy. Again, hit install, hit enable, and you're done. But it will not actually do anything at the moment because it is just a modder's resource. That is why we need the optional file. So I'm going to go to the optional Sortomatic file. I'm going to right click and then I'm going to use 7-zip to extract the file to the folder with the full name. You'll see why in a few minutes. Once that's extracted, you can delete the archive if you so wish. Open up the folder and you will see a folder called New Bison Steve Hotel Sortomatic. And there are now two subfolders, the ESM version and the ESP version. Obviously, I need the ESM version. If you've gone for the ESP version, you need that. I'm going to go in there, go into data, and then I'm going to right click on the ESM here, and I'm going to cut it. I'm then going to travel back up the folder structure all the way to the top folder. In fact, I could actually have just closed it and opened it again to save time. And I'm going to paste it there. So I've moved this file all the way up the folder structure. I'm then going to delete this one, like so. I then close this and I go along to here and I'm going to go back to 7-zip and I'm going to add to new Bison Steve version 101 Sortomatic.7z. That's why I extracted it with the name, just to keep all that extra information. That is the reason. I can now delete the folder if I want. And if I just quickly double click on this to see what's in it, there is a single file. Open up Vortex and then drag the archive onto the drop section, and it will now be added to the new Bison Steve version 107 Sortomatic version, yada yada yada. You'll see all the extra details. And just to complete the information, I'm going to double click on there. I'm going to go along to Source, select Nexus Mods, and then hit Guess. It will take a guess. I'm going to check it's guessing correctly. Yes, it's guessing correctly. That just gives me the peace of mind of knowing I can always find where that mod came from. And then hit Install. Hit Enable. And of course it now conflicts with the main mod. Go along to the red lightning icon on the Sortomatic version and load after the main mod. Obviously it's conflicting with one file. We've only got one file. Hit Save and it's... deploy. Hit deploy if it's asking, because you do need to deploy. And of course go back in game to make sure nothing has gone horribly wrong. And to give you an idea of what Sortomatic lets you do, I've placed a lot of components in a random toolbox, and I'm going to go to the reloading bench and start using it. I cannot make anything because I'm missing some components. If I sneak, if I crouch and then activate the bench, I get a lot of options, including, say, crafting options. And I'm going to go to ingredient options and I'm going to change it to use all containers. I could set it to only use components I've stored in the bench itself, which I can now do, or other crafting storages, but I'm just going to go with all containers because it's much easier. And then I'm going to go back and exit. Now, when I activate the bench, I have access to a lot of the things I stored in that toolbox. It just makes life a lot easier. You can actually install the main mod without the Sortomatic if you wish, and then upgrade to the Sortomatic version at a later date. Indeed, you can actually do that after you've finished the main quest and got the player home. So if you suddenly decide you want the Sortomatic version, you can install it then. You will lose nothing. Everything will work just fine. It's definitely worth giving an honourable mention to another quest mod by the same mod author as the last one, and it's a mod called Afterschool Special. It's a very similar concept, except instead of rebuilding a casino and running it, it allows you to rebuild the schoolhouse in Goodsprings and actually take over it as a player home. And whilst it's pretty short, it's actually a very engaging quest with really good voice acting, and it feels very natural. It really does suit the game very well because the building is already there. And it actually lets you start the game with a basic player house. And indeed, in my last playthrough, I kept this as my major base of operation the entire playthrough. I actually really liked this player home and enjoyed the quest. I did a playthrough of it, a very short one. It's only a few episodes. I will warn you, if you watch it, I possibly make it look a little harder to complete than I should, because one particular item that I had to find, well, it was a lot closer to where I started than where I ended up finding it. I don't want to give you any spoilers, but let's just say it may be worth rooting around Goodsprings a little more carefully than I did. To install Afterschool Special, go along to the mod page, read the description and go to the file section where you will see two versions of the main file, the Sortomatic version and the standard version. Decide which you want. I'm going to go with the Sortomatic version and download with your mod manager. Once downloaded, hit install, then hit enable. And if you're using the Sortomatic version, you'll need to make sure you have Sortomatic installed, otherwise you will get a missing master warning. If I go down, oh look, I've got Sortomatic disabled. If I re-enable that, the missing master warning should disappear all by itself. Once in game, if you head down to the schoolhouse in Good Springs and take a look on the other side of the road, there is a new building with somebody outside. And I will leave you to discover the rest. So let's take this up a level and start looking at quest mods that are larger. They either add more quests or much longer quests. And to illustrate that, I'm going to look at probably my favourite quest mod series, the Someguy Series. Now there are actually 9 mods in this series and I've played 6 of them, the 6 that were appropriate for the character I was playing. Each of these mods is reasonably large, with some of them actually coming close to some of the smaller DLCs in size and, with the amount of playable content there. And taken together, there is a lot of content here. I would say as a rough guess, it feels like it doubles the size of the game when it comes to the amount of things there are to do. Now this quest series is dark. New Vegas is a dark game actually, and this mod ratchets it up to a new level. The same is true with the levels of violence in this game. Violence is a constant theme and New Vegas is a violent game with violence being a constant companion, but this game once again cranks it up a little. It also does the same with things like the humour and the profanity. All of this exists in New Vegas, but in this mod series it is taken to a new level. Now the profanity can bother some people. I didn't find it a problem at all. I thought it was generally quite appropriate for the characters that were, engaging in it. And occasionally it seemed to be done for comedy value and it just felt right. For me, it suited the characters and situations, but I do know some people can have a problem with it. The other thing to know about this series is there are a lot of crossover characters, lore, and indeed there is a sort of general storyline running through all of them. They all link together really well. So whilst there are mods like New Vegas Bounties 1, 2 and 3 that are an obvious series, it's fair to say all of the other mods like the Inheritance and Russell, do tie in. Now Russell is actually a companion mod, a follower mod. You will be able to find Russell and get him to come along with you the way you do with the vanilla followers in game. But he does come with his own backstory and his own quest, and it will tie in with some of the stories that you come across in New Vegas Bounties. Now I'm not going to show you how to install these mods because as large as they are, the installation process is very simple and you can probably quote what I'm going to say in advance without even having to try and remember. The one thing I will say is they all require the Someguy Series mod. This is the mod that ties them all together, so you will need to install that first before you install any of the others. But the real question here is, should you install all of these at once? Should you install 1 or 2 of them? And if so, which order should you install them in? And honestly, the considerations here are not technical ones, but rather ones of narrative. Certain mods will obviously follow on from each other. New Vegas Bounties 2 obviously should come after New Vegas Bounties 1. But for some of the other mods it may be less obvious, at least from the point of view of a narrative, because you don't know what the narrative is. So I'm going to talk about the order I would recommend you install and play them based upon my experiences of the mods that I played. This will obviously not include King of the Ring, New Vegas Killer, or Bad You Know What, because I have not played them. What I will advise is do not install them all at once, okay? Do not. Install them as you want to use them. So you don't need to install New Vegas Bounties 2 until you're ready to play it, which will obviously be after New Vegas Bounties 1, but it may actually be after some others as well. Install the ones you need, complete them, and then install the next. It will be no surprise to hear that I'm recommending New Vegas Bounties 1 be the first mod you install, or at least you install that straight away. It is a mod where you take on the role of a bounty hunter, and it's a reasonably simple mod actually. There is a quest giver who tells you to go out and take out some evildoer. You take the target out, you go back, you pick up your bounty. But this quest giver is a fascinating character. I absolutely loved him, and you pick up a lot of the lore and story that is going to be important later on. Plus, you get a bit of experience tracking down bad guys and bringing them to justice. And what's great about this mod is it actually lets you play quite naturally, follow the main quest, and you will almost certainly pass by the bounty hunter's office and be able to sign up as a bounty hunter without really having to try hard. It feels very natural, which is great. But at the same time as installing New Vegas Bounties 1, I would also recommend Russell. Now that's the companion mod I spoke of. You can actually find him once again if you play the game naturally. He is in a place where you will naturally at some point reasonably quickly find yourself, and you'll be able to have a conversation with him and pick him up as a follower. Now Russell is a great follower in his own right. He's tough, he's got great dialogue and a detailed backstory. He also has his own quest, which is not too long, but it is well done. But I'm going to recommend you avoid doing it until you're a little tougher. You probably want to be level 20 or higher. So when he starts dropping the hint bombs about doing a quest, maybe, stall a little bit. The reason I'm suggesting you take Russell now, though, rather than waiting until you're tougher, is he does have some commentary on some of the quests and some of the events that occur in other mods in this series, including New Vegas Bounties 1. So it's kind of cool to have him along from the start. Once you complete New Vegas Bounties 1, I would recommend you then install the Inheritance. You might be thinking, why not New Vegas Bounties 2? Well, there is a narrative reason for playing the Inheritance first. I'm not going to spoiler it for you, but I would actually recommend you play that first. It will make a bit of a difference in New Vegas Bounties 2. Plus, although the Inheritance was tougher than New Vegas Bounties 1, I seem to remember New Vegas Bounties 2 being a lot tougher. So it will probably be a better difficulty progression as well. I can tell you the Inheritance was an absolutely superb mod. I really did like that, and I especially loved the introduction of certain characters that would appear in some of the later mods as well. At this point it gets a little simpler. Next you install New Vegas Bounties 2. It's reasonably similar to the first one. I'm not going to spoil things too much for you. It is a similar concept, but it is a lot tougher. You may find you probably could do Russell's quest at this point because New Vegas Bounties 2 was very tough. And then of course New Vegas Bounties 3, which is again a lot tougher. It really does ramp up the difficulty. You probably want to play the main game and do some of the DLC as well. Just make sure you're a much higher level character for that mod. In fact, the mod author recommends level 35. And then finally, the Better Angels. In fact, I would actually recommend the Better Angels is one of the last things you do overall, not just at the end of the Someguy series of mods, but pretty much once you've completed everything you need to complete in the rest of the game, because the Better Angels is tough. It is really, really tough, both on you, the player, and on your system. It has some massive, insane battles that will, really put your machine under pressure and will really need you to be on the top of your game and probably use every last weapon you've ever collected. If you've got like 4,000 mines and grenades and, 2 tons of ammunition stored for a rainy day, this is that rainy day. Now, it's not a very long quest mod, and it's there mostly to just sort of wrap everything up, to tie off the loose ends and basically say goodbye to this great series with a bang. Or lots of bang. All the bangs. Just lots and lots of bangs and splats and fizzes and whizzes and squelches and other horrific violent noises. But I would recommend quick saving quite a lot through some of the larger battles, just in case you get a crash, because you might get a crash. And that's no insult to the mod or the mod author. It's just a mod that tries to make New Vegas handle a little more than it probably should. It's not a game that handles lots and lots of NPCs fighting very well, and lots and lots of NPCs fighting is pretty much the subtext for this mod. And that's it. So a quick recap. First of all, install New Vegas Bounties 1 and Russell and play through New Vegas Bounties until completion. You can take Russell with you, but avoid doing his quest for now. Once you're done with New Vegas Bounties 1, install and play through Inheritance. Once you've completed that, you can probably engage with Russell's quest if you want. But after that, you want to install and play through New Vegas Bounties 2, then install and play through New Vegas Bounties 3, and then finally, when you're done with everything, install and play the Better Angels. Now you might be thinking, well, if I'm installing the mod and then playing all the way through it until it's finished, and then I'm done with it, could I uninstall that mod before I move on to the next? And the answer is no. No, you cannot. Not only will you lose any of the special rewards or items you've got from the mod, so if the mod added a new player home or it added a new weapon, you will lose those things, but uninstalling mods is inherently dangerous. The danger isn't to the game itself, but to the save game. You may corrupt your save game. And this can cause problems, sometimes immediately with crashes, or perhaps later down the line with increased instability, perhaps some performance issues. Now, it's actually quite a complicated subject because some mods are more dangerous than others to uninstall. In fact, some mods are actually completely safe to uninstall. They'll have no effect on your save whatsoever. So mods that change textures only, or perhaps a few models, they will be perfectly safe to uninstall. But as a general rule, if your mod comes with an ESP or an ESM file, you probably best not uninstall it unless you know the risks and have a good reason for removing it. And there are good reasons. Sometimes you may have installed a mod, played with it for a while, and then you start to notice some problems, and so you decide you're going to remove it and risk corrupting your save. And in fact, you might do that and then have absolutely no problems. Most people who've modded their games more than once have probably uninstalled several mods and really never had a problem, or not had a problem that they've noticed. It's just, it is a risk. There is a small chance, and the more you do it, the more problems you could have. And there are some mods that, generally speaking, I would avoid removing in the middle of a save. And quest mods, especially the sort of quest mods I've shown you in this video, definitely appear on that list. Now, I've shown you some mods that would be considered small and some that would be considered fairly large, but there are actually mods out there that are huge, really great big mods that perhaps add major expansions to Fallout New Vegas, like Frontier, or perhaps even completely replace the main campaign and have you start a totally different character in a totally different location and land and go through a completely different adventure, for example, Fallout New California. And there's even a mod, Tale of Two Wastelands, that will let you play Fallout 3 on the Fallout New Vegas engine. These mods are almost what I would call epic in size, and indeed probably require their own videos, perhaps in some instances their own video series. And so that is it for this video, and indeed, because this series was aimed at beginners who needed to learn the basics, and you, if you followed this series, are no longer a beginner and probably have a better grasp of the basics than many people who would consider themselves veterans, I'm afraid this series has come to its end. But before I leave you, I do have two last requests, if I may. The first is that if you find a mod and you enjoy it, please go and give feedback to the mod author. Tell them that you enjoyed it, tell them what you loved about it, give them a thumbs up, endorse the mod, just spread the love, because mod authors do enjoy that. They do live for that, at least many of us do. It goes a long way, and it will encourage those mod authors to keep working on those and other mods. You make it more enjoyable for them, and they of course in turn will make it more enjoyable for you. And that brings me to my second request, which you probably should have guessed by now. My request is that you remember, as always, have fun.